Hello and welcome to Emergence, Leading from the Field. My name is Artemis Evangelidi and I am your host. This podcast shines a light on courageous leaders from around the world, leaders who are shaping the future in bold and inspiring ways. Moving beyond the boardroom, we feature authentic conversations with guests, the change makers, the visionaries, and innovators who are leading from experience, purpose, and heart, from the field where transformation takes place. These are conversations with people who are listening deeply, acting boldly, and are doing their part to shape a more conscious and connected world. Our conversations will offer a rare glimpse into how our guests have overcome challenges while spearheading innovations that have enabled them to lead from the front lines. Be inspired as our guests share their journeys. Today, I am delighted to welcome Marie Soprovich. Marie is a lifelong educator, entrepreneur, and mentor whose journey has always been guided by curiosity, creativity, and a deep belief in what's possible. With over 40 years of leadership in both education and business, Marie co-founded Aquarian Networks Corp and led Aquarian Renovations to become one of Edmonton's most respected home renovation companies, not just through craftsmanship, but by cultivating a culture where people and potential could thrive. Beyond business, Marie is a passionate advocate for women's growth and leadership. She's a founding member of the Women Presidents Organisation Edmonton chapter, a connector in the Synergy Business Network, and serves as Director of Growth with the Global Institute for Evolving Women, an international platform devoted to conscious, heart-centered leadership. Through her mentoring platform, Willing, Marie holds space for entrepreneurial women navigating life's pivotal moments, helping them find their voice, reclaim their confidence, and follow the quiet, persistent call that invites them to grow. For Marie, leadership isn't a title, it's an unfolding, a conversation between who we are and who we're becoming. Marie, welcome.
Thank you. That's such a lovely introduction, even though I know it is just very honoring to hear the words of
It's
our accomplishments in life.
absolutely. Um, you have such a varied background. You've done so many amazing things.
Mhm.
Um, I guess I'd love to ask you to share a little bit how your understanding of leadership has evolved over the decades, because your experience spans across education, entrepreneurship, mentoring. How has
Mhm.
that transformed for you?
Well, leadership has always been something that has interested me. As a Even as a beginning teacher, my intention was to get into the leadership part of education, and truthfully, teaching is leading. We're all leaders. So I think the earliest understanding about leadership was that, you may not think you have a lot of things to lead, but we're all leaders in our own lives. So that part of leadership has been taken very seriously by me and many others, to know that you don't need an army behind you or a group of people or a team or anything. You just need to lead your own life. And when we do a good job of that and take full responsibility for leading our own lives, chances are that other leadership opportunities come along, because they just do. So that leadership, over the years, though, it is, I still think, is basically grounded in who I am as a human being. What are my values, my passion, purpose, the things that I think are important as to why I'm here on the planet, and whether I'm bringing that to the teaching in a classroom or the leadership in a school, or dealing with, parents or children on a playground, or taking over a business. It's the same kind of thing, seeing the human being in the circumstance, and being curious about, who do I need to be such that I can move this situation or these people forward, in understanding or growth, or um, joy, or hard times. Like, sometimes leadership is feels like hard work, Sometimes I can remember chatting with my son when we were traveling in Europe a year or so after his dad had passed away, and we just taking responsibility. I remember saying to him, "It's like sometimes I'm just tired of having to be brave all the time, but leadership
Mm,
is that. So it is finding our courage to keep a brave face even when things are hard." And things may not be going well, that the leadership comes from that core. So I'm not sure if that really
mm,
answers your question, but I think it's just over the years, it's deepened. My experience of leadership has deepened in a wide spectrum of what does leadership mean at different stages in life. And sometimes it is taking charge, being in the front of the room and, really leading from the front. And sometimes it's leading from behind or just within. And there comes the day when you're back to maybe just having to lead your own life the best way because the company might get sold or the business may close or the years
mm.
of education might be behind the formal stuff. So then there's the question, how do I lead now?
I love that. I think, you've hit the nail right on the head. It's leading from within, which allows us then to kind of navigate what's going on around
Mhm,
us. I guess
mhm,
you say in your I've read in your bio before and in other
mhm,
conversations that I've heard you speak where you've said, it's about a almost a conversation between who we are and who we're becoming.
mhm,
And this, for me, taps straight into that concept of emergence, right?
mm,
So we're standing in the field, and this is who we are, and we're leading from where we stand. But what's
mhm,
coming? What wants to come? What wants to come through us? So, in the current chapter of your life, with
mhm,
your new expansion into the mentoring and the coaching work, what does
mhm,
that mean for you? What does emergence actually,
mm,
in real terms, how has that shown up in your life?
mm. That's such a good question. I ask myself a question almost every morning. Who 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 do I need to be today in order to actually create the biggest impact, whether it's for myself or clients that I may have or family? It's like, who do I really need to be? Do I need to be that brave one? Do I need to be the one who's supporting from behind? Do I need to be the one who's connecting? So, once you have a long career, you've got a lot of friends, a lot of people. And that's true for me. So sometimes what I need to do is help others make the connections between what their dreams are and what they would actually love to experience. And perhaps someone that I know that either may have a direct something for them, or they may have the next step for them. So that whole making connections. So the mentorship of leadership is, I think, an important part as we get older and our life experiences are broader. I think that there is just so much to offer. So certainly now that I don't have the renovation company anymore, I sold it a few years ago, and it's doing very well. And I'm so proud of the work that they're doing and the brand. The brand is like the feel too. It's the who we were and who we are and who we continue to be. And I just love that has carried on. And when I see signs from the company around the neighborhood and they're renovating it, my heart just warms up. And I know that they're going to, the people are going to like us before, during, and after. And it's really an important part of a leadership stamp that has been put on, not just by myself, but by the team and certainly by Doug when he was part of the company. And that to me is a legacy kind of leadership because they're leading now from their highest and greatest good and really taking that on. So, what is it for mine to do right now? It's more about working with women. And so I've been involved with certainly with JIFU for many, many years. And that the vision of the Global Institute of Revolutionary Women is one that I really get behind. And it's all about creating a new culture on the planet and the transformation of humanity through the aligned power of evolutionary women. So the role women can play if they choose to take on the mission to really be that impactful, perhaps softer, but maybe perhaps even a stronger or gentle strength that actually moves us forward in ways that's not, I'm going to say pushy, or I don't know. There's a lot of mean-spirited things out there. It doesn't need to be like that in order to create transformation. So I appeal, I would like to think I appeal to that, the feminine, the whole feminine. So again, that whole holistic feminine, where there's like, if you need to be mama bear, then you get to be mama bear. And there are softer ways to sometimes have people be willing to take a look at things differently. And from that place of willing, miracles can happen, energy shifts occur, if we're willing. And that's why I called my program Willing. It was willing is a word that comes often in. I study the Course of Miracles, and I certainly am a follower of Marianne Williamson's work. And in the Course of Miracles, it's often spoke about the willingness. So if we're willing to see things differently, what we see will be different. And that willingness takes down the barriers of I can't, or I'm victim, or I'm not good enough, or all of that. I'm willing to see this differently. I'm willing to step up. I'm willing to let go of my old way of thinking or ways of viewing myself, that self-limiting beliefs that we have. I'm willing to take a look at them and I'm willing to let them go. And when that happens, magic, miracles, life shifts. It's really cool. And it's really exciting to watch how quickly that can happen. Particularly with clients who are really, they're ready and they are willing.
I love that intention, right? And the motivation to really step into the arena and step into the field and say, right, I'm willing to make a change. I'm willing to do things differently. It's fantastic. You mentioned before the feminine and embracing and holistic approach to using the feminine energy. So what does it look like to lead from the feminine, and how is that different from a traditional kind of leadership paradigm that perhaps most people are accustomed to?
Mhm. Well, in my experience, it is more group focused kind of work where there's not so much of a hierarchy. Certainly in a business, someone still needs to be the one that where the buck stops here. If you're an entrepreneur, has to be responsible for the final things. But in the experience of actual leadership, whether it's in a company or an organization, the involvement of individuals and their willingness to lead or bring ideas to the table is more of a feminine way than the old hierarchical, the boss has got it all figured out and everybody just needs to do and toe the line and not, don't argue with me because I know what I'm doing. That's an old way. It might work real short term, but it doesn't work. It just doesn't work anymore. People are way more intelligent than we've given credit for. They have the ability to think for themselves. And honestly, th we stay around when we feel like we're valued. We work hard when we can see that we are a cause in the matter, that we have some impact over what's happening around us. And if those things are taken away in a very authoritarian, old top-down model, there's resentment and there's, lots of things that are not very nice that come out, and it's not in our highest and best interest. So either people leave or they start fighting back or there's sabotage or there's all kinds of stuff doesn't work well. So I don't know. I think collaborative leadership with someone who's taken responsibility and accountability for what goes on is just a healthier way that brings more of the goods of everyone in the organization to the table. So We get to show
Mm,
up. We get to play a bigger game. We're not playing small or doing things out of fear because, you know, that we may not, I don't know, we may disappoint someone. Well, we do that to disappoint someone, but um, yeah, that whole field work changes. I remember once,
yeah.
Artemis, I gave my dad a birthday card. So I grew up on a farm and he was a really smart man, although he only had great education. He grew up in the 30s and there was out in the woods, there was no education beyond if you're lucky, you got to grade 8. And he had a wicked sense of humor and he read a lot of books and did things. And one of the cards I gave him I don't know, maybe I was in my early 20s, was this guy who was standing out in his field, with a cow pasture or whatever. And so, my dad is outstanding in his field. And he roared with laughter because you get it on both levels. He really was. He was an amazing person who had big dreams and, did we built golf course. He worked and created a community. I mean, they were people who really put the little town that we grew up on the map. And he
Mm,
just roared with laughter. And I think that understanding that we're outstanding in our field, like think about it. Whatever it is that we're up to, we can see it. And maybe we're just a farmer standing in a field, but maybe we are really someone who's transforming humanity. And we are
mm.
outstanding in our field, in our leadership, and in the programs that we run, or the people that we bring joy to, the difference we make in our communities. So that's kind of neat. So you're someone in my mind who's outstanding in her field.
And so are you, my friend. It's interesting how you say that because if I think of if I go back to Aquarian renovations, and that company became one of Edmonton's most respected companies, but it wasn't just for the work, right? It was for the culture.
Mhm.
How did you intentionally design the culture to be this way? What what are
Mhm.
the tools or the tricks or the tips that you used that
Mhm.
allowed you to do that? Because a lot of people are trying to build conscious
Mhm.
cultures, conscious businesses, and they just can't seem to break free of that systemic influence. Now, in a construction company, in a renovation company, in that industry, there
Mhm.
are some really deeply embedded, um,
Mhm.
I guess, legacy issues. How did you navigate that? And I find that quite fascinating.
Hmm. Well, it was really I'm going to credit Doug and his philosophy on life for
Mm,
how he set things up. He was a human being who was just a remarkable leader who led from within. So, and when we set up our company back in the early 90s, our first intention was not about turning it into a renovation or construction company. That came later. And certainly construction and renovation or building new homes or building high rises and things like that was part of his background. So he had the building part of it, but we started the business. He wanted to create art, really, is what he wanted to do. He wanted to create something that made an impact and had a message with it. And it was something that we could work on together, even though I was teaching and he was doing these things. And it's like, I will work my whole life long for you to build your dream and that we create that. And the whole vision of what we wanted to do was no matter what we do, is that we grow our people to their full potential. So growing people was always the core of who it was that we were. So when we start with self, so we first need to learn how to be good leaders, and we took programs. We got involved with it was at that time was a program called the Pursuit of Excellence, which was really a program that actually grew out of some of the things that went on in with pre-landmark in the where was that place? Somewhere in California, where people were really getting together and saying how we need to look at our lives and what is our sense of purpose? Why are we here? What is this all about? How are we going to lead and show up? So that work that came out of the 80s, 70s, and 80s was really prime. We followed Wayne Dyer and we read Deepak Chopra's books, and we really wanted to learn about who we are more than just two people who need to find a career or make a living. So those things were who we were, that those ideologies, and that really became the core of the company, which I still actually own, Aquarian Networks Corp, which is that company. And then as years go by, so we did some artwork and Doug carved planets, and we had T-shirts, and we kind of were really like the hippie child. We made fountains, and we had a lot of fun with it. But after Levi was born, it was very clear that, it just wasn't making the kinds of money that we needed to. And by that time, we had been buying and renovating houses and flipping them and doing that kind of thing. So it morphed, the company morphed from sort of an art focus to the art that became the construction. And with that, and in Doug's leadership, we attracted people to work with us who liked what we were doing. And it kind of grew organically in many ways. And then we just, it just became how we do things around here. Not that there weren't ever any challenges or conflicts, but it was a feeling. It was a deep caring about humanity. And, if we're here to grow, so that was one philosophy that I always brought in too. So sometimes in a business, growth was number one. And if you can grow and stay and grow, or you can go and grow, but you have to grow. It wasn't an option to not grow. So sometimes people in our works, and it's true for us too, sometimes we need to go and grow. If we've kind of taken all that we can in a certain career or something, and we're stagnant, or we're just not, it's not filling our cup or our need, or there's more for us, then you need to go and grow, because growing is not an option. Thou must grow. So you can stay and grow, or you can go and grow, but growing is essential. So sometimes when that, if people left the business or they had offers that were more than I could afford for them, or if things weren't working out, it wasn't right, then that they just go and grow somewhere else. So was part of the leadership philosophy that we really work to have our people experience.
That's beautiful. I guess there are so many analogies between building, creating, renovating, um, being, bringing beautiful things to life in, for example, buildings, and all those beautiful creative pursuits that come with bringing something to life like that you can apply also to building lives, careers, communities.
Yeah.
What do you see? What common threads did you kind of navigate through that?
You know what? I think it's an ownership feeling. So even now, after all these years, there's lots of homes in this neighborhood where I currently live where we renovated, or we did something in their homes. And there's a feeling of ownership. It's like that house looks gorgeous still, and we had something to do with that. And the relationships with the people who owned them as well. There's just that beautiful longevity of community that is created, because when you're in someone's home, or you're dealing with, making their home beautiful for them, and working together, and they're loving it, and they still like you when you're all said and done, and you live in the community, and it just becomes, it's like the village. It becomes the village, and we've contributed to each other's lives in ways that are beyond just the material goods. So that to me, I think, is that what makes a difference. So it's not just transactional. Our work was not ever just transactional. And sometimes there were clients that we had that they just weren't, it wasn't the right fit for us. And I would give them their damage deposit back or their contract. And it's like, you need to find someone that is more in line with the way you want to do business or the conversations you want to have, because I don't think we're the right fit. So we have done that. And that takes a little bit of
Mm.
courage too, because but it's also, if this isn't going to work, why would you set yourself up for um, disappointment all the way around? So
Mm.
like maybe someone else will just, it'll just be better. So, go and grow again, go and grow.
Grow. Yeah. And that's the thing also with it takes courage to say yes and it takes courage to say no.
Yeah.
It's a brave act in both ways.
Hmm.
When I guess I find it really fascinating and I kind of want to dig into this a little bit. In an you were in education, which is very structured,
Hmm.
and then in the renovation company, which is also again very structured. There's a process, there's a way of there's a protocol, there are steps that have to be followed.
Hmm.
How do you balance that structure and that flow? So how do you go from you know needing to get things done and follow that protocol, but also making space to allow what wants to emerge to come through? It's quite a
Hmm.
balancing act. How have you navigated that over the
Yeah.
years?
Hmm. Well, in my teaching career, I I was mostly a language arts teacher, and of all the curriculum, that one probably had the most latitude for as far as how to bring the concepts across to the students such that they would be engaged, learn something, and meet all the check boxes. So in some of my classes when I was teaching, there was so much creativity and fun as to how we deliver the curriculum and get kids to learn how to, whether it's writing a business letter or understanding certain genres of poetry or different parts of literature, if they're made relevant to who they are as human beings and the understanding of they can see themselves in the, whether it's a film study or a letter writing, and you certainly have to learn how to write the business letter, but I had them write people that we actually had studied about in our literature and occasionally get a response back, which happened actually for a couple of my classes over a few years. That impact was so real. It's like they'll have some of these treasured letters for the rest of their lives. And one of them was that
Mm,
we had studied Anne Frank through the Freedom Writers. I don't know if you know the story of the Freedom Writers, but they were writers down in Los Angeles, California, and this teacher took them and turned these kids around from feeling like they didn't belong to a class that
mm,
really got behind it, and they started learning in ways that were really beautiful, and it unfolded. And it was through writing in a journals and things like that. And the teacher used the analogy because there were two different distinct groups in the class, and the idea of this one needing to hate that one because if you make them bad and wrong and hate them back and all this kind of stuff.
mm,
So she
mm,
actually
mm,
brought in the story of Anne Frank into her classroom, and they understood what had happened in Nazi Germany to understand how you demonize one group and then you
mm,
empower this other group and all this kind of stuff. So they through that changed everything for them, and through that work they actually wrote Miep Gies a letter. Who was Miep Gies is the lady who helped hide the Frank
yes.
family. And she happened to be in LA for something, and she came to their school, and she became this icon of what's possible when kids get a message and learn something through literature
Mm,
and meet the real people. And for her to even tell her, it's like, you are the heroes, you really are the heroes in this world. So I actually took that concept, and I had my students, because they were so moved by that. They could either write the teacher in LA Or they could write, Geese at the time was still alive, but they could write to the Anne Frank Foundation. And believe it or not, Anne Frank's first cousin, who was the founder or the caretaker of his name was Buddy Ellis, he wrote back. He wrote us back. And he didn't just write like one year, then the next year it told students to this. So it became something that was a buzz, and it brought
Beautiful.
the business letter and humanity and understanding literature. So making things real, whether you're in the classroom or in, industry, how do we celebrate our successes? How do we take them to places where it's team? It was not one person who did that. It was a team effort, and none of us can do that alone. So when we can have that
Yeah.
experience of being part of something bigger than ourselves, then you get a culture that really is one that has lasting power long after the leader has gone. So that's
Mm.
I to me that's how you do it. We're in something bigger than just our own little small contribution, but our small contribution counts.
Yeah, I reflect on something that Otto Scharmer says at the Presencing Institute, which is it's not lots of people that bring about the change. It's each person doing something that collectively creates the momentum to bring about change or to have impact. So every little person chipping away in their own way, and as I say, just lead from where you stand, and
Mhm.
that's enough. That's enough.
Mhm.
And together we create that we create that collective critical mass that's needed to have impact and change the way that things are done. And I guess for me, that's the emergence. It's each person. You don't have to agree with everyone else around you about how to get it done, but if you stand in the field and allow for things to emerge, then it helps you in your own way have that impact on where you stand. And it's everyone chipping away in their own little way. And I mean that what you just shared now, that story, that is living with all of your students and will live with them forever. And I'm sure it
Forever.
shaped the way that they showed up in life afterwards.
I totally believe that. And occasionally I still run into a former student, and we
Mm,
it was a big deal. It was of all my career, there was about a 3 or 4 year window of students who were just so engaged in that kind of learning, because it's not just learning something, it's actually experiencing something and creating an impact.
mm,
And the last group that I had, because that was the last year I was teaching at that school, they each one had a handwritten letter from Buddy Ellis, he's passed away now, but I told them, I said, put this in your scrapbook and keep this, because this is a momentum from history, and it would never
mm.
have happened had you not taken that opportunity to take a chance and send these letters to this organization and tell him about things that you've learned. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's really kind of
beautiful.
cool. It's one of my, yeah, I had some fun. And
I bet.
it was exciting. It was exciting. Yeah.
I bet. Marie, you mentor women through life's pivotal moments. So
Mhm.
I guess I'm interested to hear your experience and your take on this. What are some of the common, I guess, blockages that
Mhm.
women face in midlife or during moments of transition? Because we always say the blockages and the limitations are all the ones that we carry within. But you're
Mhm.
you're actually in the field doing this work. What's showing up for you in with the women that you work with?
Hmm. I think mostly it's believing in themselves. So confidence is a big part of it, and someone believing back in them. So we need to get our mindset such that we're talking kindly to ourselves in our own
Mm,
heads. Sometimes we need to hear it from others. And, whether we grew up in a family where someone is giving affirmations to us is great, but that doesn't happen all the time. And there are lots of
mm,
negative affirmations that get stuck in our heads or in our way of being that really keep us playing small. So I would think that for me, even for me, the biggest thing was understanding that I don't want to play small anymore. Like, am I playing small? What does playing small look like? How do I grow that I can support others? And I think a confident woman will bring confidence to others. So it's almost contagious. And so I host gatherings in my home once every 5 to 6 weeks, and we gather a collection of women. Some of them have been through programs like the Global Institute for Revolutionary Women. Some have been through other programs. Some have just friends. And but the common thing is that we come together to listen to one another. First of all, we have some food and we talk a lot. Then we go into a circle where it's a sacred circle where everyone can show up
Mm.
and say what they're up against, and what are they celebrating, or something about them that puts it out there that we're either wanting some celebration acknowledgement, or I really am struggling with this right now, or whatever that might be. And from that, it's remarkable what happens. So that sense of community, of a safe space where we can show up with other like-minded
Mm.
women, and if we're fortunate enough to have a circle where there be like-minded men involved as well, I think that's even could be even more powerful. But for right
Mm.
now, I'm really focusing on working with women and enjoying the good company of men. There you go.
I love that. No, absolutely. I think bringing people together and having that opportunity to be seen and heard and to be vulnerable in a safe space is um, at the core of growth. Um,
Mhm,
so when women are able to finally reclaim um, their voice and that
mhm,
deep kind of calling, what what do you see? What's one of the first things that really shifts for them? What are they able to tap into that they weren't able to tap into before?
mhm. Possibility, possibility.
Mm,
Like,
mm,
really? Can I really do that? It's like, yeah, you can. And I'll
mm,
walk with you. Like, let's go. And do you want to get connected to this group? I know these people. I'm not afraid. So you can borrow my courage and we'll go together, or I'll make the introduction. Um, they it's amazing. There's one a young lady that I'm working with right now who wanted to start a little side gig. She's got a job she loves, but she wanted to
mm.
start a little side gig, and it was all about working on a VA. And I'd really not understood VA. I thought it's like a V8. It's like I should have had a V8. That was a VA. So anyhow, so she was working. She said she just gets stuck in not getting her website done and all these things. So we set up we set up the chunks. She'd check in with me, get this out there, and put it out there. And because I do a lot of field working as well, and networking is part of field work, I was in another circle with a group of women who were working on their social media platforms, and there was a lady there who was talking about how important like her work. So she's a VA, and she said, I've got so much work, I don't know what to do with it. And I said, may I introduce you to someone? And so that introduction got her first 10 hours of whatever. And then in our last
Mm.
call, I asked her, well, what's your next, do you have another little goal? She said, you know what, I'd really like one more client that is right now that comes just directly for her. That's her client. I kid you not, it wasn't even a 45 minutes after we got off our coaching call. She called me back and she said, I can't believe it, but I had someone message me, and they're I got it, my other client. Like, okay, well, you're gonna have need to make some new goals then, aren't you?
Yeah.
Anyhow, it's delightful when things,
Yeah.
when we are willing
Mm,
to open up,
mm.
the possibilities show up, and we get opportunities to believe in ourselves again. And it's like, yeah. So little affirmation, universe, keep it coming. I'll get used to it so that I'm not
Yeah.
pushing it away, because I think we can sometimes. It's like, yeah, I don't know. It's a little scary. What if I get too
Yeah.
much work? Then what am I going to do?
I
You
love
know?
that. It's the synchronicities, right? That
Yeah.
light the path and light the way. It's beautiful.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
I guess as we start to kind of bring our conversation to a close, if there's one message that you could whisper to the women who are listening and to the men who are listening, of course,
Hmm.
to our conversation today, but the ones people who are on the edge of, I guess, their next becoming or their next um, new emergence, what would you say?
Be curious, believe in yourself. We're here to play a bigger game than we've been led to believe. And yeah, the world, humanity needs you. So don't be afraid. And if you're feeling afraid, talk to somebody, reach out, grab someone's hand, but show up and
Hmm.
play your big game.
That's beautiful. I love that. Marie, where can people find you if they want to continue this conversation with you after our conversation today?
That's
And I
great.
will share all your links and everything. But what's the
Okay.
best way for people to
Uh,
look you up?
Probably on LinkedIn. So I am
Hmm.
definitely on LinkedIn. I have a website, so mariesoprovich .ca. I
Hmm.
also do have an Instagram following, which needs a whole lot of work. That's why I'm setting myself to get better at doing all of those postings, and Facebook. So I am out there, and I can be a messenger. I'm sure you can find me if you did the old Google search. You could find me.
Wonderful. I will definitely be sharing all of your details for our listeners. Marie, it has been an absolute pleasure having you with us today for sharing so much wisdom and your experiences and your stories and your insights. You are a force to be reckoned with, that is for sure. And the transformational impact that you are having on the people around you, but in your community and in the world at large, is incredible. And it is really such an inspiring thing to see. Thank you so much for your time and for your wisdom today.
Mm, thank you. Thank you, Artemis.